Have you ever wondered why some African countries are experiencing economic growth while others are lagging behind? Welcome to our journey through the diverse and complex economic landscape of Africa. Today we'll be exploring an economic puzzle that has puzzled economists and policymakers alike for decades. Africa, a continent rich in natural resources and human capital, exhibits a striking economic disparity. This disparity is not just between Africa and the rest of the world, but also within the continent itself. You see, while some African nations are enjoying rapid economic growth, others are struggling to maintain stability. Take for example Botswana, a beacon of economic success. This landlocked country has transformed itself from one of the poorest countries in the world at independence in 1966 to a middle-income country with one of the world's fastest-growing economies. On the flip side, we have Nigeria, a nation blessed with abundant natural resources, particularly oil. Yet it's been grappling with economic instability and slow growth. Despite being the largest economy in Africa, Nigeria's per capita income remains low, and poverty is widespread. Then, we have Zimbabwe. Once known as the breadbasket of Africa, it has seen its economy collapse in the past 2 decades. Hyperinflation, high unemployment, and a severe shortage of basic commodities paint a grim picture of Zimbabwe's economic plight. So, what gives? Why are some African economies growing while others are not? Is it due to differences in natural resources? Or perhaps it's about governance and economic policies? Maybe it's a combination of these factors and more. To answer these questions, we need to delve into the unique circumstances of each country, understanding their history, culture, resource endowment, and policy decisions. This understanding is critical to unraveling the economic puzzle of Africa, and perhaps offering insights on how to propel more African nations towards sustainable economic growth. In order to understand this economic puzzle, we must first delve into the unique circumstances of each country. This journey promises to be enlightening, as we unpack the economic realities of Africa one country at a time. So, let's dive in. Let's start our journey in Botswana, a country often hailed as an African success story. Nestled in the heart of southern Africa, Botswana, a landlocked country, has carved a remarkable economic trajectory for itself. What sets Botswana apart from many other African nations is a unique combination of factors. At the heart of this success story is a stable political environment. Botswana has enjoyed relative political stability since gaining independence in 1966. This stability has fostered an environment conducive to economic growth and development. A key player in this narrative is the government's commitment to effective governance. Botswana's government has consistently prioritized transparency, accountability, and the rule of law. This commitment to good governance has enabled the establishment of strong institutions that have facilitated the country's economic progress. But we cannot talk about Botswana's economic success without mentioning its rich diamond resources. Botswana is the world's second-largest producer of diamonds, and these precious gems have played a significant role in the country's economic journey. The government has effectively managed these resources, ensuring that the revenue generated from diamond exports is reinvested into the economy. This has led to infrastructure development, job creation, and a significant reduction in poverty levels. Moreover, Botswana's government has taken proactive steps to diversify the economy beyond diamonds. It has invested heavily in sectors such as tourism and agriculture, creating a more resilient and sustainable economy. However, it is important to note that while Botswana's story is inspiring, it is not necessarily representative of the economic landscape across the African continent. Many African countries have not been able to replicate Botswana's success due to a variety of challenges, including political instability, corruption, lack of resources, among others. Botswana's success is largely attributed to good governance and effective utilization of its resources. However, the same cannot be said for other African nations. Moving westward, we find Nigeria, known as the Giant of Africa, yet grappling with economic instability. This paradox isn't hard to unravel when you consider the challenges the nation faces. Nigeria's economy, the largest in Africa, is a study in contrasts. It's a nation blessed with an abundance of resources, yet the majority of its people live in poverty. The main culprit? Poor governance. This has created a situation where wealth is concentrated in the hands of a few, while the majority are left to grapple with unemployment and underemployment. Nigeria's political landscape is marred by corruption, with funds meant for public projects often ending up in private pockets. This corruption at the highest echelons of power has led to a lack of trust in the system and a reluctance to invest in the country's future. Then there's the issue of over-reliance on oil revenue. Nigeria is among the world's top 10 oil producers, and oil accounts for more than 90% of its export earnings and about 70% of government revenue. This heavy dependence on oil leaves the economy vulnerable to global oil price fluctuations. When prices are high, things look rosy, but when they tumble, the economy takes a hit. Furthermore, Nigeria's infrastructure is woefully inadequate. Power outages are frequent, roads are in poor condition, and the healthcare and education systems are underfunded. This lack of basic infrastructure hampers business operations and discourages foreign investment. Finally, the country's security situation is a significant deterrent to economic growth. Insurgencies in the north and unrest in the oil-rich Niger Delta region have deterred both local and foreign investment. Despite its vast resources, Nigeria's economy struggles due to a combination of poor governance and over-reliance on a single revenue source. It's a classic case of a giant with a limping economy. But with the right policies and a focus on diversification, there's hope that this giant can find its footing and begin to stride forward. Next, we head to Zimbabwe, a country that was once the breadbasket of Africa, but has since experienced a tragic economic fall. In the early years of independence, Zimbabwe was a beacon of hope. It was rich in fertile soil, abundant in mineral resources, and had a well-developed infrastructure. But over time, this promising African nation has become synonymous with economic hardship and decline. One of the key factors in Zimbabwe's economic downturn has been political instability. The country has been plagued by a series of tumultuous political events, with power struggles and corruption undermining the economy. This instability has scared off foreign investors, stunted economic growth, and led to a massive brain drain as skilled professionals fled the country for more stable environments. But political instability is only part of the story. Zimbabwe's economy has also been crippled by hyperinflation. In the mid-2000s, the country experienced one of the worst cases of hyperinflation in history. The value of the Zimbabwean dollar plummeted, wiping out savings and pensions, and making the currency virtually worthless. This hyperinflation has led to widespread poverty, unemployment, and a severe lack of basic goods and services. And then there's land reform. In a bid to address historic racial imbalances in land ownership, the government launched a controversial land reform program in the early 2000s. This saw the seizure and redistribution of white-owned farms to black Zimbabweans. However, the policy was poorly implemented, leading to drops in agricultural productivity and food shortages. The breadbasket of Africa was no more. It's a tragic story of how a country with so much potential can be brought to its knees. But it's also a cautionary tale. It demonstrates the importance of political stability, sound economic management, and fair, well-implemented policies. It shows us that the road to economic prosperity is not always a smooth one, and that missteps along the way can have catastrophic consequences. Zimbabwe's story underscores the devastating effects of political instability and misguided economic policies. Having traveled through these diverse economic landscapes, what can we conclude about the economic disparity in Africa? It's clear that the economic picture across the continent is as diverse as its geography. We've seen economic success stories and tales of economic stagnation. We've walked through the bustling markets of thriving economies and felt the despair in the vacant streets of others. The first thread we've noticed in this economic tapestry is the role of governance. Countries that have embraced good governance, transparency, and accountability have seen their economies grow. They've attracted foreign investments, built robust institutions, and created an environment where businesses can thrive. On the other hand, countries plagued by corruption, lack of transparency, and weak institutions have seen their economies falter. Then there's the thread of economic diversification. Economies that have managed to diversify away from single commodities or industries have fared better. They've been able to weather global economic storms, create job opportunities, and foster innovation. Conversely, economies heavily dependent on a single commodity or sector have been vulnerable to global market fluctuations, often leading to economic instability. Lastly, we can't overlook the thread of political stability. Economies in politically stable countries have experienced growth and development. Investors are more likely to invest where there is certainty and predictability. In contrast, countries with political instability, conflict, and frequent changes in government policies have scared away investments, leading to economic stagnation or even decline. So, weaving these threads together, we see a rich, complex tapestry that is the African economic landscape. It's a landscape filled with potential and promise, but also challenges and pitfalls. Indeed, the economic disparity in Africa is a complex issue, influenced by a myriad of factors unique to each country. Yet, the common threads of governance, diversification, and stability weave a telling tapestry of economic success or failure.